Hey, mate. Welcome to David Doesn't Know. I am David.
I'm Chad.
I'm Ryan.
I'm Hannah.
And today we are talking about the conspiracy theory that Paul McCartney from the Beatles died in the mid-1960s and was replaced by a double lookalike. So, David, what do you know about the Beatles, and what do you know about this theory?
I know they're a band of 4 people. 2 of them are dead. Paul McCartney and John Lennon were the lead singers. They have a lot of songs that I value as overrated.
Supposedly 3 are dead. That's what we're going to hear today.
Yeah, allegedly 3 could be dead.
Don't alienate our future fans by calling the Beatles overrated.
That's just my opinion. I listened to a short little synopsis about this theory.
Okay.
So I know kind of where it comes from. Album cover pictures and stuff like that.
Okay.
But I'm eager to learn more.
All right. So here's the truth behind some of the actual Beatles history. The Beatles were an incredibly prolific band whose careers spanned an entire decade in the 1960s. They are currently the best-selling artist of all time with multiple #1 hit albums and singles. They were pioneers in pop music, rock and roll, psychedelic music, and the music industry at large. They all sang at some point, but their members were John Lennon on guitar, George Harrison on guitar, Ringo Starr on drums, and Paul McCartney on bass. John and Paul were the heavy hitters in the group and wrote a majority of the songs, with Paul in particular being the main heartthrob and a fan favorite. The Beatles garnered unprecedented popularity from the public in the 1960s. Do we have any questions so far?
Oh, I've got so many.
Wait, so which one's the heartthrob?
Paul McCartney.
Is he the one that's supposedly dead?
Yes.
But
Supposedly.
not
In bold, supposedly.
So which one's the real heartthrob, the old one or the one that replaced him?
I would guess both of them. Well, no, because the original Paul would be like original Beatlemania, you know what I mean, where they got like big as almost like boy bands.
They were the first boy band, I would say.
They were. So the Beatles garnered unprecedented popularity from the public in the 1960s. The group had plenty of theories around their songs and personal lives, but the most famous is a conspiracy theory that their bassist Paul McCartney died during the peak of their career and was replaced by a double. Let's talk about it.
So how did people come to that conclusion? They just like one day are like, he doesn't really look like himself anymore.
So that ties into the theory. So here's the theory. Paul McCartney died on November 9th, 1966 in a car accident. He was officially pronounced dead at 5 o'clock.
Wait, that's real or that's just
the theory?
That's the theory.
You not listen to the first part of his statement? Where he said this is the theory.
That's just the theory. So everything I'm about to talk about is the actual conspiracy theory.
Okay.
So this would have been right after the Beatles album Revolver and right before Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, which, to anyone who doesn't know, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band is like the
ones that have the flower all over.
That's like a huge album for them. Like that was like a turning point in their career. So again, this is the theory. UK security services advised the Beatles to find a replacement for Paul in fear of mass suicides by the public. The Beatles then began to place clues in their music and art that Paul McCartney was dead. Oh, we got somebody chewing on a cord.
Oh, no.
Don't chew on a cord. We have cats chewing on cords.
No. Let's put it up.
Continue.
Okay. So UK security services advised the Beatles find a replacement for Paul in fear of mass suicides by the public. The Beatles then began to place clues in their music and art that Paul McCartney was dead and had been replaced by a lookalike. Does anybody have any questions?
They are really specific about their conspiracy theory. So where did these specifics come from? Like,
was there a car accident at that time?
A car accident.
So there was a car accident that Paul McCartney was in. He had actually been in 2 like minor car accidents around this time. And this is really when the theory started. But obviously it's up for debate whether he actually died in this car accident.
Was his car totaled?
I don't know about like in his minor car accidents. There wasn't like a whole lot of information.
A bunch of witnesses to this car accident,
That was early in the morning or night, wasn't it?
This was 5 in
they
the
pulled him out
evening.
on the stretcher and he looked dead.
I think this was 5 in the evening. I'm almost positive. So the Beatles obviously started to place clues in their music and art that Paul McCartney was dead and had been replaced by a lookalike. Here are some of the most well-known clues that Paul is dead, and we'll go in chronological order.
Okay.
I'm ready.
Also sent you the album covers if you want to look at them.
I can't wait.
Feel free to look along at home. All right, so let's start with Sgt. Pepper's, which was released in 1967. What's up, Chad?
Huh?
I were you about to say something?
Oh, no, I was just breathing.
Okay.
That is not allowed.
So let's start with Sgt. Pepper's, released in 1967. So on the album cover of Sgt. Pepper's, Paul McCartney is wearing a badge that says OPD, which many think means officially pronounced dead.
Which one is he?
That one.
He's the one in the blue.
Oh.
You might be able to zoom in because he's got like a little badge. Again, these are people who with amazing eyesight who picked this out and make album covers like on records. Yeah. I think I actually saw it was like Ontario like police department is like what they claim it actually says.
Oh.
So also on Sgt. Pepper's album cover, the yellow flowers in the garden are shaped like a left-handed bass, which could be meant to draw attention to Paul. Since he famously played like he's a left-handed bassist, and he famously played the Hofner bass, which is like it looks like a violin.
Oh.
Yeah. So after that, again on the album cover, if a mirror is held in a certain position on the kick drum, which we do not have a mirror.
Is this the kick drum?
Yes.
Oh.
It reads I1X IX he die, which many have interpreted as 11/9 he die, a reference to the date of the accident. So again, people with way too much time on their hands holding up mirrors to this album cover to pick out hidden interpretations.
Wasn't there different versions of that cover too?
This is if there were, I mean, it's been spoofed like so many times, but this
Is that supposed to be them right here too?
no. So there are, I mean, it's a bunch of celebrities behind them. So like this is straight up one of the most famous album covers ever. I think Edgar Allan Poe's in the back.
Some of them were famously dead.
Yep. Suspicious?
So going past just the album cover, in reference to some of the lyrics on the album, the final song on the album is A Day in the Life, which has many clues, but one of the most damning is the lyrics, he blew his mind out in a car. He didn't notice that the lights had changed.
Oh.
Which again, many people it stated that he died in a car accident and that he actually, in one of the more gruesome theories, was scalped.
That he was scalped by the car?
Yeah, in the car accident. Like apparently it was like a very gruesome car accident.
But there was like no actual witnesses to this car accident that came forward that started this conspiracy.
If they were silenced. So, yeah. So, but again, it would have been a mass conspiracy that even the Beatles were in on it, and all of their team were in on it, and even some of the public were in.
A lot of people to keep a secret.
Well, the Beatles were very prolific. They had a lot of money.
It takes a lot of people to keep a conspiracy down.
Yeah.
So that is another one of the theories. Their next album, which was the White Album.
Does this guy not look like him? Like,
So that is Paul McCartney, and people have made like comparisons to like Paul McCartney before 1966 and after 1966, and try and put together like little differences.
Discrepancies.
Yeah, like especially like there's something to do with like maybe his like left ear. Is it his ear?
Yeah, the way the ear winds into itself is a little bit different pre 1966 than it is post 1966.
so perhaps his ear was scalped and not his whole head?
And there is some truth behind. So when he did get into his actual car accident, he did end up like getting a scar on his lip, which is why he grew the mustache.
Yeah, I heard that.
Yeah.
Not to look like a pedophile.
Well, I mean,
Come on.
they all had mustaches.
This was a different time. Yeah, a lot of people have mustaches.
People have mustaches now.
I know.
I think it's funny how COVID hit and we immediately started growing mullets and mustaches again.
Because more hair means less COVID?
I think so.
It's another line of protection.
It catches the bacteria.
So, like, the longer you have it, it's like wearing.
Chad, when are you shaving and growing out your mustache?
Well, it's in the,
He grows it and then shaves it all.
in the work.
I bet you could rock a twirly mustache.
You did.
I've had one.
You do like the Decemberists.
I do like the
Do
December.
they have mustaches?
No, but
But they look like.
Like pirates?
Well, you heard that one song. It's called the Mariner's Revenge song.
okay.
All right, White Album.
So their next album is the White Album.
The one where
which
they're
was-
walking across the street?
No, that's Abbey Road. There's no like there's no like hints on the White Album because it's literally just a white cover.
Oh.
That's the White Album is their self-titled album, but they call it the White Album. That's Abbey Road. We'll get to that in a second. So the White Album was released in 1968, a year later. Now between Sgt. Pepper's and between Sgt. Pepper's and the White Album, there were a couple other albums. There was Magical Mystery Tour, and what was the other one?
The
Chad?
Bus. Which one has
Was it Yellow Submarine?
Yes.
Because I think those two came out between Sgt. Pepper's and the White Album.
Which one has the dead baby dolls?
That was before Sgt. Pepper's. I can't remember which one that was.
That's.
That was retracted.
Isn't that yesterday?
I don't remember. I don't know a bunch of. So the thing about the Beatles is like their discography is pretty much like split between like the early half of their career, which is more like kind of like pop. It's all kind of like poppy, but like the early one was like the Mop Tops, and they were like making more accessible music. And then the latter half of the 60s was their like funky.
So when the first Paul was alive versus when the second Paul was
and it's also split up between two albums. There's the Red Album, which is where like all their earlier work, and then there's the Blue Album, which is all their later work. And it was like two compilations that were released after the Beatles had split up. So like the Red Album stuff I actually don't know like a ton about, but like the Blue Album stuff I definitely know more about.
What year did they officially split?
1969. It was either 69 or 1970.
What year did John Lennon die?
1980. So it was like a decade after.
Really die? Or
Yes.
pretend?
John Lennon is really dead.
Yeah, John Lennon is actually
like
dead.
pronounced dead. There's like corpse. There's
They made a movie about it.
Did they really?
Yeah,
John Lennon?
It had Jared Leto was the one that killed him.
Really? I didn't know that.
Oh wait, he got murdered?
Yeah, John Lennon. So John Lennon was killed. We're going to take a short a tangent here, people. Feel free to join along. So John Lennon died in 1980 because a man who was inspired by the book Catcher in the Rye shot John Lennon like on the street somewhere.
New York. It was in New York?
Yeah, I
It
think
was
it was New York.
outside of the Dakota apartment building.
Yeah.
Yeah,
His name was Mark David Chapman.
I think he just got out actually, not long ago.
Really?
Yeah.
All serial killers have three names.
He wasn't a serial killer. He only
All prolific murderers.
killed John
Don't
Lennon.
most
Yeah, he
people
only
have
killed.
3 names?
No, but they don't go by three names.
Oh, like he had 3 first names?
Well, he just told you his name.
I wouldn't say
Jeffrey Dahmer didn't have 3 names.
I wouldn't say Chapman's the first name. Mark David Chapman.
Yeah.
So Mark David was his first name.
That sounds like you.
So were there riots when he died?
there were not riots
But
per
more-
se,
there's
but
a lot
there
of
were
mourners.
lots of mourning.
People
Yeah.
were very upset when he passed, when he was killed.
And like he had the whole like funeral and stuff and all that. I
Yeah,
guess.
John Lennon was very, very beloved. He was like the
Was he the second heartthrob?
He was. So John Lennon and Paul McCartney were like the two like big ones in the group. Like people love Ringo Starr and George Harrison.
I like Ringo Starr's name. That's fun.
But John Lennon was like kind of like the hippie guy. Not that they all weren't like hippies, but like John Lennon was he embraced it wholeheartedly. So, but yes. So going back to the
George Harrison also famously stabbed one time.
was he really?
He was.
I'm learning so much here,
By a guy
and I'm
with
running
three
this
names?
show.
I don't know if it was a guy with 3 names. Somebody broke into his house and stabbed him.
That's terrible.
Did he live or die?
He lived.
That's good.
My favorite song is "She Came In Through the Bathroom Window" by the Beatles off of Abbey Road, and that's about somebody breaking into Paul McCartney's house, and then he wrote a song about it. It's really,
Was that
really
before
good.
or after he supposedly died?
That would be supposedly after he died. So going back to the White Album, released in 1968. This is a double album. In the song "Glass Onion," which I think is the second song on the album, John sings, "Well, here's another clue for you all. The walrus was Paul," which could refer to the fact that the walrus on the front of their album Magical Mystery Tour is wearing all black and could signify death. Because people say that the person wearing the walrus outfit on the front of Magical Mystery Tour is Paul McCartney. So the fact that he's wearing black could signify that he is dead. The other thing about Glass
What does
Onion.
a walrus signify that he is?
So their song, they have a song called "I Am the Walrus."
It just means they did a lot of drugs.
They also did a lot of drugs because they have a song called "I Am the Walrus" that people have like really like dug into. So people read way too much into like Beatles lore and mythology.
What do the Beatles have to say about all this?
Oh, we're gonna get to it.
Oh, okay. So they have like actually
gonna
like
get to
made
it.
statements about these things.
So
I want to see the walrus.
do you guys like the movie Knives Out? Like the Knives
Yeah,
Out movies?
I love
is
it.
funny.
So they have the second one is
Onion,
Glass
second
Onion.
one.
So Glass Onion is a term that was coined by the Beatles because people read way too much into like Beatles lore and mythology, like finding hidden messages where there were none.
Right.
So this term Glass Onion is trying to peel back layers on something where nothing is actually there.
Makes sense.
Is this the walrus?
Yes. So people say that the walrus on the front is Paul McCartney. So the Glass Onion song is calling back to that album cover, which many people think is John Lennon hinting at Paul dying.
Yeah.
So people have also stated on the White Album that if you play the song "I'm So Tired" backward, John sings "Paul is dead, man, miss him, which is just sad.
So
Why? But who's the
That-
first person that tried to play an album backwards that discovered all this?
I think as soon as vinyl records came out, people were trying to play them backwards, I'm going to be honest.
Because I've heard the one about someone played an Ozzy record backwards and it said "Get the gun, shoot, shoot."
So
There's
that
a
was
lawsuit about it.
like during the what was it? What it was a certain committee, but it was Tipper Gore.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there was a huge, they called it the Satanic Panic in the 80s, where there was a lot of like fear of the occult and
Right.
children being taken in by like satanic forces, and they pointed the finger at figures like
Ozzy.
Madonna, Ozzy, Prince was the main one who kicked that all off. Motley Crue, stuff like that. And that's actually why we have the parental advisory sticker.
Is it?
It is.
really?
So why do you
the-
the parental advisory sticker stuff?
So like when you see the parental advisory sticker on an album, you can thank Al Gore's wife, Tipper Gore. And Prince to a certain extent.
Did Prince even have an album that would have that?
Yes, he had a song on his album. Purple Rain that was called Darling Nikki. About a girl that was a sex fiend. Tipper Gore saw her daughter listening to this song, like heard her daughter listening to this song, and basically that kicked off this whole thing. It was like a huge thing.
What age is parental advisory? Does it say an age on that, or just
I would
so
imagine
that you know that it's?
It's pretty much just to tell parents, hey, this could have
Explicit lyrics.
Some of the
have
things.
Unsavory topics.
Yeah.
The next question was his daughter spraying hairspray outside, and that's why Al Gore is such an environmental. What is the word? Environmental.
Yeah.
Because she sprayed hairspray outside?
I don't know.
Because what?
But she
hairspray,
could
like,
have.
Yeah, damages the ozone.
The hairspray does?
Yeah.
Any
And people in the
aerosol.
80s loved their hairspray.
Oh.
Yeah. So one of the main theories and points on this album too, this is the one that really kicked off this theory, and we'll talk about it in a second. But
on the White Album.
On the White Album, we're still on the White Album.
Okay.
If you play the song Revolution 9 backward, you could hear the lyrics "Turn me on, dead man." So if you play that song backwards, it'll say, "Turn me on, dead man. Turn me on, dead man." And you can actually listen to it like on YouTube. It'll actually play it. But it's somewhat, you can definitely hear it. What do you think, Chad?
I mean,
I think I hear it.
I think you can hear it, but I also think it's one of those things where sometimes your eyes puts things together to make it make sense to you.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with your ears and your brain. I think it's making you make sense of sound and putting words where words aren't necessarily there.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Because I'm guessing a lot of words could sound like other words if you said them backwards or heard them backwards. Like, that would probably just be...
Like, I don't know if I would, I don't know if I would have heard it if it like hadn't been pointed out to me. You know what I mean? But
well, there is a whole thing. It's called like backwards masking, where you can insert like sentences and phrases and stuff into like songs. But like you've mentioned many times, the Beatles were revolutionary, and that's maybe they were just messing around with backwards masking.
I'm sure they were just messing around with it.
It's like
what's that one song with the booty back or something? What's that?
What? I like big butts.
No.
MC Hammer famously hid secret messages in his music.
All about that bass.
Yeah, and I thought it was no trouble, but it's treble, like music, not like in trouble. At first, that's what I thought. I mean, so you can confuse words.
Well, Jimi Hendrix famously had a backwards guitar solo on "Are You Experienced," which is really pretty cool. So that is like one of the major theories, and we'll come back to that in a second. But going to Abbey Road next, which is the other one I sent you. On the album cover of Abbey Road, it states, so all four Beatles, this one's actually really cool. I think this one's my favorite like theory out of like this whole thing. Mm-hmm. So all four Beatles are walking in a line which many have interpreted as a funeral line, like a funeral procession.
Aren't they copying? Doesn't somebody else walk across this same street?
People have copied the Beatles album covers.
But are they the first ones who did it?
Yeah. This is where, like, if you ever see this reference, it came from the Beatles.
So did the Rat Pack walk across the street? Isn't that before?
Did they? That's a good question, actually. I don't think I know that photo.
Unless
were they in English? They were.
Well, because the Rat Pack were definitely before the Beatles.
Yeah.
Unless that was like somebody photoshopped. Maybe.
They could have photoshopped. But as far as I know, the Abbey Road album cover is like wholly original. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So all four of them are walking in a line as if in a funeral procession, with John Lennon in all white at the front as the priest. Next in line is Ringo Starr in all black as the Undertaker. Ringo Starr And then after him is Paul McCartney, not wearing any shoes, which is how some corpses are buried. And then George Harrison last in all denim as the gravedigger.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I've heard stories of why he wasn't wearing shoes, and it had nothing to do with him being dead.
What were the theories you heard?
Was it like that he's a hippie?
He was hot, or he didn't feel like they were uncomfortable or hurting him, or
That's what they want you to think.
That is what they want you to
they did. I heard they did a bunch of different shots of it.
They did do a lot of takes.
This is the one they chose.
Yeah.
It had nothing to do with. And isn't there something on the license plate of the car?
That is the next one we're getting to.
I'm ready.
So the license plate on the car in the back reads LMW. So L as in Larry, M as in Mary, W as in whiskey. 28IF. So some people have interpreted this as Linda McCartney Weeps, which was his wife at the time. Because he was with Linda for like a long time. I remember. I think that was like who he was with, like, because she had passed recently. Is that right? Or do you know anything about that?
I think so.
Because I think he's been with, like, I think Linda was the one he was with forever. So that could be interpreted as Linda McCartney Weeps, and 28 being the age Paul would be if he lived.
I heard they just couldn't find the owner of the car to remove it.
I am pretty sure that also is part of it. It's always a Volkswagen driver if you noticed. So what do you guys think of the clues and the hints so far? So far that's the end of the theory. Those were like the major points that people have pointed out, and other clues related to that. Unless, Chad, do you have any other clues or hints that are favorites of yours?
I've heard some different stories about the car accident, but nothing too much different. Like he had picked up somebody. It was like pouring down rain, and he had picked up somebody, and when she realized it was Paul McCartney, she started freaking out and grabbed the wheel, and that's how they crashed. And so that's the only difference that I've heard, really, from what you mentioned. But I'm sure there's a lot of different kind of segues into how you get to the final story. But now I think it sounds to me like we got a dead Beatle.
Yeah, 100%. There's no way he's not.
Well, technically we have 2 dead Beatles.
Right.
I thought there were 3.
Yeah, technically 3.
3 dead Beatles.
Officially, there's 2.
It's all.
It seems like there are a lot of all of these are very open to interpretation.
They are.
You're finding clues where you want to see them.
And I'll state for the record that I don't believe that Paul McCartney died in 1967 or 66, because I have seen Paul McCartney
Live
and
in person,
and
he came to your barbecue.
I wish
he's about to call in, right?
That'd be a good story to tell.
Didn't we tell him about
barbecue?
About 750?
What was the stupid theory that I heard, that Paul McCartney actually did die, but they replaced him by Ringo just moving really quickly.
Ringo's fast.
Ringo is fast. It would be Ringo to be like the last alive of the Beatles for sure.
Yeah, so.
So.
Yeah, no, and part of me, and God, you know,
well, I mean,
you don't. What?
Sorry.
You don't want to wish anything bad to anybody, but I don't want Ringo to be the last Beatle.
That's messed up.
He's doing well.
He does.
Paul McCartney looks like he's kicking too, honestly.
I mean, yeah,
he had that recent video about
So
he had some like viral video recently. I don't know what the hell it
What
was
about
about.
sound, though? I mean, he sings, right?
Well, Paul McCartney sounded really good the night I saw him.
So people say that they chose this Paul McCartney, they're like his double, through a lookalike contest that they had held previously.
Did they actually do that? Was that real?
Did they do that? I'm sure they probably did at some point.
I'm sure. I mean, they've had lookalike contests for celebrities all the time. Yeah. So I'm sure at some point they have probably had a Paul McCartney lookalike contest.
Of course, it seems like really slim odds that you'd get someone who looks just like someone and sounds like that.
They had him surgery, right?
Like I might pass the Colin Malloy from the Decemberists lookalike contest.
But do you sing like them?
No.
I feel like Paul McCartney would probably be like the easiest Beatle to replace, though, honestly, because George Harrison looks pretty distinct. So does Ringo and John. Paul McCartney, I think, looks the most normal out of all of them.
I can see that.
But does he sing the most normal? Like, is that something you could just easily pick up off?
I think he's my favorite singer out of all four of them.
So maybe harder to replicate his sound.
Well, he's got that Liverpudlian accent.
Yeah.
So they also had to get someone, I guess, with the same accent.
Well,
then that would seems like that would be a hard.
They got voice trainers for stuff.
Oh yeah. I think it'd probably be easier than
what did his mom have to say about it, or his siblings, or cousins, or
does he have siblings?
No.
I have heard a story going deeper down the Paul is Dead rabbit trail about the funeral of Paul McCartney and how it was only attended by the 3 remaining Beatles. And apparently Paul's dad was a priest or father, or I'm not very good with the religious names, but he was the one that actually did the service.
Oh.
So, I don't know.
And so, like, everyone around him just hid their grief and no one ever...
Everyone was paid very well, supposedly.
There you go. Money talks.
So, here's the truth behind the conspiracy. The conspiracy was around since 1967, since Paul was in those couple of minor car accidents, but as far as we know, he was fine. That's what the truth is. Mm-hmm. So the theory really took off after a Detroit DJ in 1969 had a mysterious caller who told him to play the Beatles song Revolution 9 backwards, which contained that message, "Turn Me On, Dead Man," which launched college kids into a frenzy in America trying to find additional clues. So the theory had been around but wasn't like very substantiated until this DJ in Detroit in 1969 got a mysterious caller, which... was probably just him paying somebody to, another one of his friends to call in.
Call-ins, Bert.
Yeah. So he got him to play the Turn Me On Dead Man part, and that is what launched people into wanting to find more and more clues in the Beatles that Paul was dead.
Yeah, if you want to find something, you can find it.
Oh, 100%. So since then, the Beatles have denied any and all claims that Paul is dead, with Paul himself doing an interview later just to put it to rest.
What did he say?
Well, he's going to admit it. It's not even really him.
Well, his famous quote was, "If I'm dead, then I would be the last to know." So Paul has obviously completely denied it, and obviously this would have been after the Beatles had been broken up. So, and Paul was the one that like was on the outs first. He's kind of like one of the main reasons that the Beatles split up. They were all like done with each other at that point, but Paul was kind of like the one that really made the exit.
Is he the one that had the girlfriend that was like
Yoko Ono?
No, yeah.
No, Yoko Ono was John Lennon's wife, because they were married, I think.
Married.
So since then, they have denied it. John had denied it on multiple occasions, and George Harrison had stated once that the rumors are too stupid to bother denying. So
sounds like a cop out.
So now, Chad had lended me this DVD, which I actually need to get back to. I'm sorry. Lastly, there was a fake documentary released in 2010 called Paul McCartney Really Is Dead, The Last Testament of George Harrison. And supposedly, it was 2 tapes that were dropped off in London of George Harrison on his deathbed, I believe, basically spilling the beans on the whole Paul is dead thing and giving all the clues. And
he spilled the beans.
He spilled the beans.
On toast?
Yes. On like Paul McCartney actually being dead and like a lot of the guilt that the other Beatles felt because of it. But that claims to be in the documentary, it's obviously the voice of George Harrison revealing the dark secrets of this conspiracy.
So it is his voice? Is that, and
it sounds like him.
It sounds like
it's
him.
Very smooth. It puts me to sleep.
But the only thing, one of the things that people say about it though is that the audio quality is too good for a degraded tape for a man on his deathbed. So that is pretty much the gist of the Paul McCartney is dead theory. So what do you guys think, first and foremost? Do you think there's any possibility behind Paul dying in 1966?
Hear me out. What if?
I'm hearing you up.
This is coming from what you just said 5 minutes ago that you don't believe you did.
But what if it happened in another universe?
No. You lost me.
And then our universes butted together. So some of the story spilled over into our universe. So people have this like
a Mandela thing?
Yeah, like Kazam was really filmed with Sinbad as the actor, not Shaquille O'Neal.
As the Beatles said, that is too ridiculous of an explanation to even bother.
It is ridiculous, but that's because we only have part of the facts.
That's like the 3 Spider-Mans in the one movie?
Oh, yeah, like the multiverse thing.
No, I don't think he's dead.
Multiverse is real. I don't care what you say.
I think
they seem to get pretty irritated anytime. Like the Beatles seem to get irritated anytime somebody brought up the Paul is dead theory.
Well, they probably.
Well, I don't know. I might be kind of annoyed if people were like, "You're dead." I'd be like, "No."
I tried to talk to him about it at the concert, but he wouldn't acknowledge me.
Oh yeah. He just brushed you off.
It also probably didn't help that I was, 1,000 feet away.
You're like yelling.
Were you realistically 1,000 feet away?
I won't say 1,000 feet, but I mean, how long is the football field? Is 100 yards? I don't know how many feet are in yard 3. So
300 yards.
So
300 feet.
I was probably.
Was it outdoor?
Yeah, it was at Wake Forest football field.
Oh.
Truest field.
No, I don't believe he's dead. I believe it's the same Paul.
I just think that all those things, they're very open to interpretation. I wear black clothes sometimes too, and I'm not dead.
Yeah, we know.
That's the next subject.
Who am I really married to? And who's the person in the basement? In the carpet.
That's a Norman Bates mother.
If you want to find facts to support theories, you can warp your mind.
Oh, absolutely.
You can find information to support your theories, not necessarily facts.
Okay, you can find information that in your mind you turn to facts.
Well, it's a lot of stuff you'd have to do. You'd have to have somebody who can sing exactly the same, looks exactly the same.
It's not like he was up there busting a move. It's pretty much just up there. And they also stopped playing live, I think, after Sgt. Pepper's. So they didn't play any concerts or shows after that.
But were there any, other reasons they possibly didn't play live? When did the other guys...
So the reason they stopped playing live is because their live shows got way too out of hand. People went nuts.
You didn't hear the music.
Yeah, you couldn't hear the music anymore. So they would play little concerts or live shows here or there. They obviously had their famous rooftop concert.
Yeah.
That I think it's on Disney Plus now or something. I don't remember. I'm sure you can find it on YouTube.
That seems like a way more.
I'll watch that actually.
Yeah, Back is on Disney Plus, and it's the
studio footage.
It's them building up to that concert. I had a 4th grade teacher that always used to tell me this story. She told the whole class, not just me. That sounds a little creepy now the way I say it. I had a 4th grade teacher who told the class this story, and she was talking about when she was younger. She was 16, and she wanted to see the Beatles so bad she saved up and saved up and saved up and got a Beatles ticket. Is when they were playing in Winston, and went to the show, and all the girls around her and everybody was screaming so loud that she couldn't hear any of the music, and it was just like pushing and shoving, trying to get closer. And she said it was the worst experience of her life. So
What year would have that been?
I guess probably the early 60s.
Yeah, I was about to say early 60s. Because they pretty much became a studio band after that, like Steely Dan.
I mean, that sounds like a more plausible reason, like a very realistic reason to stop doing live shows if you're like, oh, well, the show.
That's also why the Paul didn't have to be very convincing. That's why, I don't know. I'm not a fan of Wings, so I don't really.
Wings?
What? His other band.
Yeah, Paul McCartney left the Beatles, and then he started his band Wings, which was okay. Like, if you ever heard the song Band on the Run.
I think I've heard that.
Which is a great song. Terrible album. Band on the Run is a fantastic
But I guess if
song.
he was, like, going off on his own, like, then
He also had some solo
really
work, too.
be that upset.
He also famously worked with Kanye West one time.
Really?
He did, and Rihanna. And they were all in the same song.
Oh.
And funnily enough, a lot of people thought that Kanye was opening the door for Paul McCartney. Like introducing him as a new artist.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. You see those tweets and stuff around
I
it?
don't think so.
It was like, I don't know who this Paul McCartney is, but he better thank Kanye.
Was that guy being serious?
I can only assume yes. Maybe he wasn't, but
Do you know where the Beatles came up with the name the Beatles?
well, they were the Quarrymen.
They were the Quarrymen.
The what?
The Quarrymen.
Corey.
Yeah. But they were inspired by Buddy Holly, who had his band, The Crickets. But then they wanted to also be kind of like a insect band. So they named it the Beatles, but they also really liked the Beat Generation poets like Jack Kerouac. So that's when they became the Beatles, Beatles.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. And for the longest time, as a kid, I thought the word Beatles, like the insect, was spelled Beatles.
I still do until this very moment.
The Beatles are, the insect are spelled with 2 E's.
So what year did they run from to officially together? What year did they start?
So they started I think they officially kicked off in 1962. But they had done some shows before that.
Berlin.
Yeah. In Berlin. And then they were also mainly in Liverpool, where they were from. And then, because there is the famous fifth Beatle. But
and he just didn't make it.
He was
Did he also die in a
he was the drummer, and then he got replaced by Ringo Starr. And then after that, they started in 1962 and pretty much hit the ground running and were extremely famous until they disbanded in I want to say it's 1969. It was either 69 or 70.
So the run was not that long together.
I mean, 7-8 years. That's not bad.
How many albums did they put out?
A lot.
40.
They have a
That
lot.
time period, or just
Well, because you have to think back then, artists, I like how we're just running over, just rambling. But they released a ton of the thing that a lot of people did back then was they would release a lot of singles, and then they would also do some albums. One of the main things that the Beatles did is they ushered in something called the album era, which was when people started to release more albums over just releasing a bunch of singles all the time.
Gotcha.
Yep.
That's
Which you can check out on my channel.
I will. And what's the name of your channel?
Jukebox History. So, but yeah, does anyone have anything else to add?
I incline to believe that he didn't die.
Okay.
That makes more sense to me.
Do we have any believers that he did die?
No.
No.
Unless you do.
I might have to be the odd man out just for the sake of the theory and say that maybe it really
you're
is
go in the maybe category.
that maybe it really is Ringo just moving really quickly.
Like he's like, what's the silver in the X-Men? The one that goes really fast?
Quicksilver.
Quicksilver.
Yeah.
You have to move really quick to both play the drums and the bass.
Yeah.
So it's Quicksilver. Neither one of them are there.
That's why he's the best Beatle.
All right, he can live.
All right, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. Like, subscribe.
All that fun stuff.
I don't think David has a Patreon yet, but we're gonna get him there at some point.
Who cares?
But like and subscribe, and go watch our other first 2 episodes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Till next time.
Bye. Did it stop? Oh.